maybe you all can kind of share a few in here. But this is put out by Episcopal Relief and Development. I know you've heard me talk about them before, and the work that they do both nationally and internationally in times of distress. And that's why whenever there's a hurricane or something happens and people say, who can I give to? This Episcopal Relief and Development is who you want to give to. I was during two different really bad, there was an earthquake in Mexico City and then a hurricane over in Cancun. And the earthquake in Mexico City, they were getting ready to send some money down, and there's a huge English-speaking Episcopal church in Mexico City, and they called the rector and said, do you know anybody over in the Yucatan that could help? And he said, one Easter, there was some American lady who lived over there. And he went back to his guest book and found my name and phone number and address from 2 years before and called me. And he said, and this is way before I was ordained, he goes, Ann, if you're up for it, the presiding bishop would like to send you this money and it'll be delivered to you in cash. And it was. And so, but they know those contacts, you know, who to get to so that money is not just left on the table and when people are starving over here or something like that. So, and every year they come out with their kind of like what you would call their Lenten program. And this year it's Who is My Neighbor? And it so slides into those three questions we've been asking during this interim time is, you know, who are we and who is our neighbor and what is God calling us to do? But a little sidebar to this was on Thursday, I was in the church and I came out and a couple with a little girl walked up. And his English was pretty good, hers wasn't all that great. But I was talking to them and they were looking for a place to get married, but they literally need to do it like in the next day or two. And it turns out they were from Ukraine, and he and his family had gotten out in April, but all of her family was still there. And so they're trying to get their paperwork in order here, and they were having to get this thing okayed by a justice of the peace and such. But when we were in the narthex, he was looking at this and he goes, that's a Ukrainian train. And so, you know, and that makes sense. It's the blue and it's the yellow. He goes, that's what our trains look like in Ukraine, you know. So there they are, you know, somebody had worked it out. So people were getting a whole bunch of, it looks like fresh fruits and vegetables. And so we really don't know how we can help one another, but I'm going to show you where a part of my sermon came from that you'll hear this morning, or if you've already heard. It's kind of an unusual source. If you look in this booklet, almost everybody in here, there are verses from the Bible, all except, look on page 18. Would someone like to volunteer to read this? There are no hard words.
Sure, I'll read it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Love isn't a state of perfect caring. It's an active noun like struggle. To love someone is to strive to accept that person exactly the way he or she is right here and now. Fred Rogers. The word neighbor and Mr. Rogers are inextricably linked for those of us who grew up as his television neighbors. As a Presbyterian pastor in Pittsburgh, he devoted his career to teaching children how to be good neighbors. Without talking about God directly, Mr. Rogers shaped 2 generations of children with the idea that they are loved, they matter, they can manage their emotions, and they can reach out in love and understanding to others. Fred Rogers reminds us that love is not a destination or state of being that we arrive at, but something we work at if we choose. Of the different words for love in ancient Greek, the word agape means the kind of love God has for us and that we are called to have for one another. Agape is unique from other types of love, like romantic love or love of family, because it is chosen and it is selfless and unconditional. Jesus, through his teaching, his parables, his actions, and his very life, shows us what this agape love is. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, we see that God calls us to see all people, especially those in need, as our neighbor, and that the kind of love we should share with our neighbor is agape love. I hope that you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like, it's you yourself, it's you. Fred Rogers lyrics. Is there someone in your life whom you struggle to love and accept as they are? Are you able to love and accept yourself? Spend some time in prayer and ask God to help you see and love yourself and others as God does.
Why don't you all just spend about 5 minutes spinning in at your own table, and then we're gonna come together as a whole group.
So agape love, I know Christian talk about that a lot because unconditional love is an relationship. And a lot of people say I love family, God is not. It's just unconditional love, no matter what. Also, the big thing God.
It's sending that heart.
Yeah. I remember Craig Stevens never here had been a life again, but he's been ill for that. We're sitting and talking to one young man, he's like 19 years old. Apparently, he's doing okay. And when we go in there, we don't ask him what, why, he feels about it. And you look at Craig.
Yes,
They said, you think God
controlling emotions.
the murder? Craig looking right now, said, established.
Animal.
I'll tell you what,
Animal.
that is like that, 5,000 pounds.
That's what he is. Plus, those places you can get on the internet, so.
So we talk about that.
I think what it seems like, there was a movie where about it,
That's a big.
Yeah. Like magazines focusing on authors and
You got Yeah.
That's very representative. It's very funny, but
When you're young and dumb, you
it's very
Okay. What surprised you most of all? Hello.
The Fred Rogers was a Presbyterian minister, I didn't know that.
How many of you all knew that? That's happy. If I did, I'd forgotten that he was, but what I'm going to also now invite you all to do, if you turn to page 22, keep in mind what we just talked about. And this is where it says we believe is for this Sunday. Now, in the name of time, we have a very long gospel this morning. I mean, it's very long. Believe me, I've read it once, it's long. But it's easy to summarize because it's the story of that Jesus and his disciples come into a town and it's the middle of the day, he's really tired, he sits on the edge of the well, and this lady walks up and she's got her buckets and he says, would you get me a drink of water? And she's like, hey guy, this is Samaria. You're not getting anything from a Samaritan. But it's the story of the woman and the Samaritan going to the well. And it's a story that is such an extreme one for us to even fathom. Who could we think of in our lives that we would fear going and asking for water or something basic?
Remember about Kyle?
Yep.
Probably looks skeptical.
It's hard for us to really imagine that. And I know after one of our hurricanes in Mexico, and we didn't have any electricity or water for 3 weeks, it was like, oh, this is what it's like when, this is just not always readily available. And frankly, it's hard for most Americans to get ourselves out of it just always being available to these states of affairs. So I want us to look on page 22. There's a creed that Episcopal Relief and Development has, but I want you all to go on these questions kind of cold turkey. Consider the first line of the creed and the following questions. And you may hear our presiding bishop, he says this pretty often. We believe our life-giving, loving, liberating God gives all, gathers all, and draws all towards shared wholeness with one another and the concerns of those struggling with poverty, disaster, and disease. And the second point is, what does the wholeness that God draws us towards look like? And then the third is, when has God drawn you toward the concerns of those struggling with poverty, disaster, or disease? How has that concern changed you, your priorities, or your actions? So why don't you all throw around some answers to those 4 points?
It is hard to look a word that said, arranging will probably be something happens. Carrying some of one of those one because this there's a huge struggle with this. We're not Sometimes different than, say, that's okay. Work around it. Oh, I'm not even. That's an area that's a little area.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember the accounts of the Muslims who lived on that road for generations. They knew that homes from our country.
In some cases, like the result of that, is I remember that there was an acceptance, and so sometimes it's, realize the solid, so if you want to totally opposed, but it's an acceptance or yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, you look at what happens. More, you didn't see that. But I guess, as it's immediate.
Well, it's now, it's.
Well, yeah. It is, it's still.
Yeah, and it's not. Yes, exactly.
This happens.
Everybody for Virginia?
It's really an hour.
Oh my God, that would be my first argument. But they don't have that down there.
The battle fighting.
Particular website.
Yeah. They said they had like teenagers up in the trees, snipers shooting out the windows.
But in this
The first time I was TV, our life being from literally when I got business, is Amazon. Share things. Children.
They didn't have any other way.
Not only train their children, that they able to kill.
And if you're experience something different to emotion, you don't know what it means.
Thank you for forgiving them,
Of
they
course.
know not what they do, they really truly.
Okay, just kind of hold that thought, because we're going to blend it together with the text that's on the next page over on 23, that's in the book, for tomorrow morning. You can go ahead, Al.
You ready to go? Thank goodness the Israelites were cranky in the wilderness and lost faith. Just imagine if God saved them from slavery, brought them to the promised land, and they never once doubted or betrayed God. Where could we find ourselves in that story? I went to a workshop once by the staff of Episcopal Relief and Development about the emotional life cycle of disasters. The initial phase was traumatic, followed by inspiring, heroic effort as people come together to help each other. Panic moves on, disillusionment happens as people experience the reality of their loss and their community's inability to maintain long-term disaster level cohesion. The energy of individuals and the community depletes as exhaustion in body, mind, and soul begins to grow. The work of recovery then shifts to working through grief and building a new sense of community. It is slow work that happens in the midst of frankiness, doubt, and division. But it is also good and real work that can lead to resilient and deeper relationships. The good news is that God meets us in the wilderness, the very place where it is easy for us to forget all that God has done for us. When we are hot, thirsty, and cranky, and exhausted by loss, God is there, ready to gush living water from the very stones of our crumbling and doubt. The hard truth is that even then, we may not feel refreshed. There is no shortcut to recovery, but God walks with us, a fountain of life in the valley of the shadow of death. God is there, ready to give us what we need to continue the road that leads to restoration. Is any part of this emotional life cycle of a disaster sound familiar as you consider your community's experience over the last 3 years of the global pandemic? How do you find the patience, hope, and inspiration and strength you need on difficult and cranky days in your life? As you look back at your life, can you see God's restoration at work in you?
Thank you very much. There's one word that kept popping out in that reading, it's cranky. My mom used to use that. She'd go, "You're cranky, go take a nap," you know. What is it as humanity that we are kind of cranky right now? People aren't patient on the streets, they're not patient, you know, you go places and they don't have enough staff. You know, we're hearing that all the time now.
You just lost an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all this. And I was at the doctor's the other day, and the doctor said, "Yeah, we're short on doctors." I'm like, "Great," you know. So, yeah, we are kind of cranky right now. And I think it's part of this is kind of coming out. But that last question on the, you know, the first page, how has that concern changed you, your priorities or your actions? Back in 2005, when we had Hurricane Charlie that came through Southwest Florida, and it had just passed literally, and the fire chief called me today, can St. John's be a post-hurricane shelter? And so immediately he got the Episcopal Church, the Catholic Church, the Lutheran Church, the Methodist Church, all up and running in one day. And God had really spared those churches. Everything was destroyed around it. And so for, 16 days, we had all these people eating in our church, all these people sleeping in the church. We had regular services, and they just started scooting to the edges. And yet, when I look back on 22 years of being a priest, some of the greatest times were what all took place then, doing that. And really feeling like you were being a neighbor. And that's the thing that we get bogged down thinking a neighbor is someone who is physically near us. I think if we can get out of that idea, not that it can't be, but don't think that's the only focus. That neighbor comes in all different packages and such. So this is something I think could be one of the greatest gifts that you give your director, is for a new rector to arrive here, and this church gets it, they know who their neighbor is. And they're working to work with their neighbor. That doesn't mean just doing something and throwing it out for people. It means getting with people and seeing how they can help us. And it's like right now, there's a poster up, the youth are hopefully going on this trip in the end of July, and they're looking at palling up with 1 or 2 other churches and doing it. And that's something that doesn't make life quite so hard if you realize doing things with other churches helps you all help neighbors even better. And it's easy for us just to kind of throw that out, but really think about how would you approach folks to work together versus saying, "Hey, it's like those people over there need their houses painted," and sending a bunch of people over on Saturday and goes, "Oh, we paint your house," and the guy goes, "Yeah, but I hate that color." You know, no one asked me. So we have to be sure we ask before we just pop in with the best of intentions. So, and I noticed that to have that sense you know, with whatever we're doing, even, I was thinking about Eagle projects the other day. Those don't necessarily have to be things here at this church. They can be things sent out from this church. So how does this church become that neighbor in the greater community? And you all can do that. You all have all of the tools in the church to do that. It's just getting used to using them again. Because I know you all have done all kinds of things with other people, with other people. So when we look at this first line again, this is Michael Curry, our presiding bishop. He says this all the time. We believe our life-giving, loving, liberating God gives all, gathers all, and draws all toward shared wholeness with one another. The concerns of those struggling with poverty, disaster, and disease. It's like the people walking up to the door of the church Thursday afternoon, just trying to find a place to get married, you know. They don't know how to speak English, their country's ravaged. That's such an easy thing to help somebody do, to say it's okay to stand here. And you never know when that will go back and someone will say, well, where were you? That's gorgeous. In the background, oh, it's Episcopal Church. Because we had a discussion about what the Episcopal Church is, because they've never heard of it. So, enough rambling by me. But as we start, you know, moving forward and I sat around my Volkswagen, it's a bug that I've had for 43 years. You kind of never know if it's going to make it in the next shift. I was talking to the mechanic who's over here on 620, I said, and he knows this church, and I said, you think you can make it up the hill from here? He goes, well, you might have to do it all in third gear. And so for a while, we might kind of be, you know, in third gear, but as the search committee goes into, you know, high gear, I think things are going to be, you know, moving a little faster. You watch the house being built and the walls go up real quick, the roof, and then all of a sudden it takes forever to do the floors and cabinets and things. Just, you know, be patient, but along the way, figure out ways to be good neighbors. So, that all being said, this one point here, when has God drawn you toward the concerns of those struggling with poverty, disaster, or disease? There's two ways of looking at this. How have you done that as an individual, and how have you done that as a church? And one great gift I think sometimes we forget to recognize is the members of this church are doing all kinds of things on the outside too. And we sometimes don't realize all those things that people are also doing. So that might be something for you all, just to kind of spin around the table here. Some things that you do outside of the church, outside of your daily routine, and trying to be a good neighbor, trying to help people.
Did you marry that couple?
Yeah.
So we have a spokesperson for that sitting right here.
One thing that comes to
You
mind
because,
really quite a few years. There was a period where I was
a lot of those things are like.
and I don't want to
All the
imagine.
problems I have.
Even
I've said this here, and I've said to people.
And so I did want to see
And
them,
I mean,
but we went to Louisiana,
all the problems that I have.
after
With
Hurricane,
all these
and
disaster relief organizations.
and
That,
we went to Houston,
they
so
do
we
exactly what she was called. They simply gather money from
went to Salvation Army, homeless shelter, or full mission there, and something on service, things like that, and we're seeing, and what we were
standing
seeing,
in the front yard.
they have work.
House was flat,
Completely gone, but they're,
and your children were looking there, and you're just standing there. And you're, and some of these.
and,
I remember
I remember thinking, we were saying, passing around.
Just well, and
I was trying to go there, and I was thinking,
We didn't know until later when we were back when.
But there's something about.
Come to find out she was gonna act. They put a light on back, so they didn't see her friends who did, so we lifted up.
And then they would meet here in the church, and then they would do it. And we build up and do something about it. Or during spring break, we gather the families and the kids and the adults and.
We were over in Mississippi.
Whatever, and go out into the, just right here in the city.
I followed him.
And then, you know,
He said, that's the reason they drop all their stuff up. And I said, what's up?
you know, you jump in here and we collect all the items, getting off the tools.
We're gonna go
They would
like
take
to
the van,
the one.
like the trailer loads.
This is martial
Well,
law.
we did, and you break,
He
we
said,
would
yeah.
let
I
there.
said, I need
It was
to know back way to get in the Smithville, Mississippi.
really uplifting.
That's what I did.
Of our,
And my cousin said, go over
And
there.
I-
I said, oh, you're one of those kind. I guess. But I said, but I'm driving in that.
It's right down the street. And there's so many.
I said, I've been in charge of money, food, goods, and everything for my church. I'm not just gonna go buy a house.
We don't have to.
So, see,
No,
I'm
we
going
don't.
out.
And it really
That's
doesn't,
not what she
it
did.
talks
And I
about.
love man, and there's a lot of good that they can do. But they overthink everything.
She did, she's been acting once, but anyway, so she
They
did.
overthink so much. Instead of getting out there,
And
getting
last year.
Jerry Flowers, but getting out there amongst them. You gotta get out there amongst them, and find out what's going on. And find out who sure there is, or do something. Because there are a lot of people that say, well, they're anyway. So you need there, you know, y'all do just trying to get in your house. They all, everybody figures down there. Yeah. So I don't mind that.
Yeah, you don't think about that, thanks.
Get in there along, you wouldn't know that these three people were that.
And I did that in Houston, because they
And
had
this,
mission, you were in, and it's a constant, where you really interact, you make sandwiches, and you pack it up, and then there's a
Long, right, all that.
To these kids at once, and around, so these kids eat at school, or they don't go to school, they don't eat, and you just tell your neighbor.
I mean, if you need help, you need help.
But yeah, it's right here.
You know, when I walk out, and I drove through the area,
And then
I
Riverfront.
found people standing on the sleep. In fact, we found a guy, Pastor Gill, leaning on the shelf, a pair of tennis shoes, a pair of cut-off boots, and a shirt, nothing else on. He was so red from the sun, it was unreal. And he was leaning on the shelf, and he was standing, he was standing, so I couldn't wake him up. I pulled, you know, I got back was over here.
Yeah, so those summers are really.
I kept, sir, sir, I wouldn't know better, but shake it, scared.
Thanksgiving.
But,
You know what parents know what to do, you know,
I didn't realize
what you do is you try to find
the box, the turkey, everything, whatever. So we drove in, you saw us, we got there, part of the festival, was like, you know, we were really driving the car,
you know, just all you have to do is assume this one people are,
but we came up, I think nobody was from.
And we, over here,
Is that wrong?
my house in the,
This party
make the laws,
is, this lady's like,
for children,
well, what's
is
her
it running
name?
different areas?
I'm Santa Claus.
my business too is, we bought here in the this is church, we bought here in the
Yeah, we know.
Living old lady, got her own son, who was dead, never heard before they come.
It's been a while, but.
Couldn't do it,
Like lunch stack, or maybe like some cheese crackers or peanut butter crackers, and maybe a water bottle, and anything, you know, so you keep them in your car, and then on the
That
water,
was
just
like
like
you walk out and make it tacos.
It's big, right?
There's unbelievable.
It's like,
Oh, change your
but you
whole
still
lot.
give it to them, because it's not about,
Just
the-
that
it's
way.
the problems that you're, you know,
I remember
it's
my
not
house
about.
they were for years, and I,
Some of them.
we funded, just like we funded,
Or it's
I
doctors.
found them.
Yeah. So.
One of the little towns in Mississippi,
I think
Shannon O'Brien, who was the principal
we don't know who your interface and number two, you know, we really need to, what are we doing? It's really needs to have, like, doing things to be a church organization or scouts or whatever. Goes up to, from 360, national actually, guy who was in the sign, walking out to the corner, black and dog, you see him in the shade over here. He gets almost provided every time. He turns around and goes back and pulls his car again, you still walk around, because we're just again back to it. And then that's got out there, that's the other thing, you start carrying around with power school system. In his car, he had business cards for the Salvation Army. And he also had business cards for the Master's Church. And when he stopped there, he rolled out his.
We had sizes, we had what they wanted.
Scribble signature.
You know, now we weren't willing to
You
buy
take his
video
cards,
games.
call that number.
So, and then they didn't see that, that's just something more.
Yeah.
No Xbox, I never hauled any Xbox. I did buy a golf ball, here in Georgetown, and hauled it over there in the trailer. So that, because the school, was all in one area. No entry. Like I was in high school, in high school, all in one area, where they were completely demolished. So they were scattered on all of this property up there, and Chad couldn't get around. And you made comments, and now we should see all these kids, all I got. And he got around over there. All of that.
Oh, yeah.
I told the guy, I understand what it's for. And I think this is what you pay for. I said, well, they do that. Yeah, we do that.
Oh, I get it.
I just, yeah.
So, do that. We just let it done, try it. So, that's the kind of stuff that you wouldn't know. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. When, guys, Texas, students, so they fly my new math. They never walk in with anything. They only walk in and say, I'm going to pray for it. I said,
Well, but if
that's
you
right.
were playing, like God knows our heart, but He also knows their heart, but it's not our place to judge what God knows. So
In lines that lasted forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Try to get it.
So we have to.
And then when they got up to them, I'm talking about it was in the 80s and 90s, and 100 degrees for hours. Finally get up there and they go, oh, you're supposed to be that. That made my sense. I lost my memory. I was really mad.
Okay, well.
I know, we gotta get it, all of that.
It's a time to share, and I know we can do it all day. And that you all have opportunities, and when we are helping neighbors and such, when I say short-term, long-term, the post-hurricane program we set up on Pine Island in 2005, the school building, it's got whacked by another in the last year. So it's long-term, it's not necessarily just what we can do now. When was the last time you heard about the victims in Turkey and Syria and the earthquake?
Stories from very.
Yeah. You know, those 45,000, 50,000 that died, life is just kind of, moved on. And sadly, that's what oftentimes happens. So it's also why we need to be the best way to be of assistance. And again, I'm grateful to the Episcopal development. I really am, because they've done some good things. So pairing up with another Episcopal church in the area, it's more not promoted. You know, that's the other thing we didn't have. Because I know we were close to European shelter, we had two people from the church there, there was National Guard there, there was a medical and some food, but I don't see the word out, who the hell is talking. So it's, when we dive in, we gotta be able to swim for a while, so to speak. And that's just, look at ways where what we do for others in life, like use that kind of national. But you all heard some great men today, and thank you for bringing some good ideas. Because sometimes this is what church is about, we just don't get a chance to do this and all this. And for those of you who already been to 8 o'clock, thank you for being there so early, almost in the dark. And for those of you going to 10:15 service, you've already got a hand what the sermon is about. So please take these booklets if you don't already have one at home. It's a great series of meditations for that issue. Thank you, everybody. This is kids, by the way, this is kids' church. As soon as we finish class, and they would be greatly appreciative if we could just make 2 little rows of chairs, just put the round tables back a little bit. That way they can hit the ground running. Thank you. And I got very excited about this. And
What about like since you paid taxes?
Up there 3 months later,
Your contract or
it's in the shower.
And I think it's gonna be.
I had, you know, I love that, but I had yes, to get to something. And I got about there and then. So that time, I went to the ER, they said, that I really needed to know, because I couldn't see in my last. So I went to,
Yeah, I just basically went through all those things that you were doing.
Still doing it. And I was starting to study my experience. You know, it was got great service. And that's, yes, they agreed that I needed, you know, lots of various reasons.
Oh, yeah.
I was in that, I was in that, right, I was so close by. And she said it was.
Well, our oldest is getting married, so I was just back just for her shower. That was last weekend, and then we got there
My kids, to make sure. And he took it off, all right, I saved it. In my mind.
It weighed less than 10 pounds.
And I just got running the songs. Yeah.
I was weird. Sometimes in the night.
No. Yes. That part.
He's gonna take it again,
They said it should heal itself in 6
and then I'll go wait, she needs some.
And after that, then.
So that'll get, you guys can take it again.
We needed to tomorrow. Yeah, except in his case, our is more. The tissue where it's.
Alright, so yeah.
That was the first day my guy took his pictures.
Yep.
It was a shame, we went out there, wildfire.
Yeah, and then.
Yeah, I remember, it's like that.
Only do things just, you know, walk or sit. And, and then after, something, I want to be taxes.
Yeah, we'll see, I'm thinking,
So that it
my
doesn't.
goal is fly hopefully. But if it's real bumpy, then we'll pay for it.
There's all kinds of things that are.
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness somebody does it.
It's always fun to see the ground from the air, it's kind of fun.
When I was walking out.
December 31st.
First, big machine and this little thing, because at certain times, sure, it's right, they get these little backgrounds. And it felt so good. Little things.
Little things.
I think I did now.
Right. And as I was walking by, I said, yeah. Aren't they
Yeah.
good that somebody love me?
Yeah.
And she.
Yeah.
And it does so many things. Says neurology, it doesn't
Okay.
So,
Okay, now it's hard for me to
did all of
I
those
don't
things.
tell me, I feel like I'm missing out. Like flying, I feel like I'm missing out.
Thanks for asking, sorry about the long answer.
Yeah.
So I'm just slowly.
Okay, do it.
Trying to think of each vacation. That'd be cool. Beach, I grew up on the beach, so.
Remember that?
Southern tip of New Jersey, the Cape May. So it's a beautiful beach. We went there, I was one of 6 kids, we went there every day for 6. So, I'm gonna go back and spend some time with my cousins to shop for. Yeah, I like the